So we've been asked to find the equation of the line, and we've been given 4 different constraints and asked to write 4 different equations. So the first constraint that we've been given is we want the equation of a line through 2 points, -3, 2 and 5, 6. Okay, so the way to do this, the real simple way to do this is remember first and foremost that the equation of a line can always be put in slope-intercept form. Okay, so y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Now, if you know that, it's really actually quite simple to do this first problem. The trick is, if you know the slope, you can use the slope to find the y-intercept, and if you know the y-intercept and the slope, you can write the equation. So, what I want to do is first find the slope. Well, the slope, which is m, is defined as the change in x over the change in y. Excuse me, the change in y over the change in x. It's rise over run. You hear that a lot in algebra class. Rise over runs. Change in y over change in x. So change in y, we can say y2 minus y1. And change in x, we can say x2 minus x1. Okay, well, the change in y, y2 minus y1, I can say 6 minus 2. And the change in x, if I call this y2 and I call this y1, then I have to call this x2 and I have to call this x1, would be 5 minus -3. So I end up with 4 over 8, or 1/2. That's my slope. Okay? So I know my slope, and I know my equation has to look like this. Y equals mx plus b. So now I look at my equation, my original equation, and I have 4 letters. Y, m, x, and b. Now, at this point, that's the x value, that's the y value. That's also the slope at that point. At this point, that's the x value, that's the y value, and that's also the slope. So at either of these points, I know x, I know m, and I know y. The only thing I don't know is b. So I take my equation and I plug in. I'm going to use this point right here. So, okay, y is 6, m is 1/2, x is 5, and I don't know b. So I write my equation. Y equals mx plus b. And the only unknown is b. So I say, okay, I've got 1/2 times 5, which is the equivalent of 5/2. So I get 6 equals 5/2 plus b. So I subtract 5/2 from both sides. Well, 6, you've got to remember, folks, fractions here. 6 is equivalent to 12 divided by 2. So I end up with 12 divided by 2 minus 5 divided by 2, which gives me 7 over 2 equals b. Well, if I know m is 1/2 and I know b is 7/2, I can write my equation. And my equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 7/2. And that equation will go through the 2 original points. So I take my slope, m, and put it there. And I take my y-intercept, b, and put it there. Okay? And I get my equation. Okay? So that's the first one. Now the second one says, here's a line. And I want a line that is parallel to that line and through the point 3, -8. Okay. Well, this is telling us something. This is a hint. Okay? This is a hint. And the hint that they're giving us is that parallel lines have the same slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. So if I know the slope of this line, the slope of my line has to be the same. So I take this equation. The easiest way to find the slope is to solve it for y. So I say 3y equals -5x plus 9. And divide both sides by 3. I get y equals negative 5/3 x plus 3. So now here is my slope, m. Okay? My new equation must have the same slope. So I say, okay, my new equation will be y equals mx plus b. I need to find m and I need to find b. I just found m. How do I find b? Well, very similar to our last problem, we've got 3, -8. They gave us a point. That means if I plug this point into my equation, it must come up that the two sides are equal. So I know x, I know y, and I know m. My only unknown is b. So I plug them in. Okay, y is -8, so I get -8 equals negative 5/3 times 3 plus b. And negative 5/3 times 3 is -5. So I end up with -8 equals -5 plus b. And if I move this over, I end up with b equal to -3. Okay? So I know m, I know b. Write my equation. What is my equation? Y equals -5/3 x minus 3. So there's m and there's b. Okay? That is my answer. Okay. Question number 3, very similar to previous question. Perpendicular to 2y minus 7x equals 12 and through the point 4, -5. Very similarly to the last question, this is giving me a hint. This is giving me a hint. The hint is that perpendicular lines have to have opposite reciprocal slopes. So I'm going to find the slope of this equation, and that's going to tell me the slope of my equation. To do that, we solve for y, so I get 2y equals 7x plus 12. And then I divide both sides by 2, so I get y equals 7/2 x plus 6. Now, this is the slope. Okay? So my slope must equal the opposite reciprocal of this number, which is -2/7. That's going to be my slope. Okay? That's the slope of my line. Now again, using the same theory I've used on the first two, I need to fill in y equals mx plus b. I have 4 letters. I need to find b. At this point, I know x, I know y, and I know m. So if I know x, and I know y, and I know m, the only unknown is b. So I plug them in. Y equals -5. M is -2/7 times x is 4, and then plus b. So what do I get? Well, I get -5 equals -8/7, right? Because 2 times 4 is 8. So I get -8/7 plus b. Okay, now all I have to do is move this -8/7, and 8/7 is the same as 1 and 1/7. So I have to say -5 plus 8/7, and I get a fun little fraction here. I get -27/7. So I get b equal -27/7. Okay, so I know b, and I know m, and I can write an equation. I'm going to just, since I've got so much going on here, I'm going to change colors so that you can see this. So I write my equation. Y equals m, which is negative 2/7, x plus b. So, and in this case, it's going to be minus 27/7. Okay? And usually if you're doing these as class exercises, they have nicer numbers. I'm choosing to do ones that don't necessarily have nice numbers so that folks can see how to do them when they're not cute. Okay? So that's our question 3. Question 4 says through the points -3, -5, and -3, -6. Now, here's what we do. We say, okay, what's the slope? We got 2 points. What's the slope? Slope is change in y over change in x. Okay, so here's our y coordinates. Okay, so change in y is going to be 6 minus -5 over -3 minus -3. And 6 minus -5 is 11. And 3 minus -3 is 0. And so what I end up with is 11 over 0, which is undefined. Okay, undefined. Now, at this point, there's 2 things you can do. You can either A, remember that when you have an undefined slope, it is a vertical line. Or B, if you plot these 2 points, you'll notice that the x, -3, -5, and -3, 6, you go over 3 and down 5, you go over 3 and up 6, they're on top of each other, which again would graph a vertical line. So either remember that an undefined slope is a vertical line, or you can graph this on a sheet of graph paper and you'll see that it's a vertical line. Okay? And given that, we have to remember the equation for a vertical line is always x equals a number. And in this case, what number? Well, here x is -3, and here x is -3. And the rule for a vertical line is that anywhere on that vertical line, the x value doesn't change. So the x value will be -3. So x equals -3 is the equation that we're looking for in this particular instance. Anytime you have a vertical line, it's always x equals a number. And just for reference, folks, if you have a horizontal line, it's always y equals a number. And the way I remember this is that a vertical line only strikes the x-axis. So it's x equals a number. A horizontal line only strikes the y-axis, and so it's y equals a number. And that number is wherever it strikes the axis. If you have any questions about any of these, please let me know.